MPs could face a crackdown on paid media appearances under new rules. I'm going to read into this more from Sky News, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from Sky News with the headline that MPs could face a crackdown on paid media appearances under new rules. So a new parliamentary committee will examine whether paid media appearances are in the public's interest or a conflict of interest. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video. So more will come out as time passes about this parliamentary committee hearing on whether or not on paid media. Example pretty much is about second jobs as well, but more particular obviously is about paid media appearances such as Nigel Farage on GB News, David Lammy on LBC, as just two such examples there. Obviously we know that there are many former Conservative MPs who are being reformed. Conservative MP Jacob Rees-Mogg, and obviously Lee Anderson has appeared several times on GB News as well, and presented them and been paid by them. And it's a case of whether there is any justifiability to it, and is there a conflict of interest when you have politicians who, let's be clear, we hear a lot from MPs about saying they have so much work on their hands as an MP. It does raise the questions about second jobs, and this is kind of, while we obviously, I do have had this discussion about whether or not, whether MPs should have second jobs at all. Never mind it's being media appearances. Like, I know that there are obviously, like, for example, those who are working as doctors or nurses or working for the NHS. I absolutely admire and appreciate those people who go out of their way to work for them, but how are they able to do that and also do their work as an MP at the same time? And I just, like, for some people may argue, well, they manage their time well and whatnot, and maybe some other MPs are not managing their time well, and that's entirely possible. It's entirely possible. But part of me feels like, but you're as an MP, as a politician, a representative of a constituency, you should be giving all your time to your constituents. That is the reason why you are voted in. Obviously, I know people will say this in the comments. Well, unfortunately, that's not how it works, Regan. People just vote for whoever is, they just vote for the political party. They voted Labour or Greens or Lib Dem or whatever because they wanted to oust the Conservatives, and that's true. In the last general election, the one goal that we all wanted was the Conservatives kicked out of government, and they have been kicked out of government. Obviously, I would say this obviously that ties into the whole, obviously, where we want proportional representation and changing that. But this, obviously, like, politicians who have the power to make changes within Parliament, the fact that they are also being paid by media as well gives them more leverage than other politicians within the Houses of Parliament, because they have a platform that they can use, that they can express their policies and opinions of that, as opposed to other MPs and whatnot who have to go out their way to go onto medias, go onto calls, to make their case for politics and whatever. And 9 times out of 10, they don't really get to talk about what they want. It's always the case about, what the general story of the day is and whatnot. And they have to obviously either defend or attack the government, whether you're Conservative, Labour, whatever side of the spectrum is. So you don't really get to talk about what you want to talk about. Whereas David Lammy on LBC has in the past, and Nigel Farage here on GB News, they can talk about what they want. And obviously they can talk, in particular, they can talk about the subject of that. But they are a paid politician where they can actually have an impact and make a difference on what they can do. And they're being paid to do it as well. So that's where I do strongly feel that there is, without a doubt, a conflict of interest in doing so. I don't care what, if a politician position, whether they're left wing, right wing, or centre, they should not have a spot on a political broadcast. I don't feel. No, I think it should be, because it's not right that some MPs get more highlighted than others, unless of course you are a cabinet minister or a shadow cabinet minister. Then obviously that's a little bit different, because of their position. But there are lots of MPs who don't get a whiff lots of attention for things in that they're campaigning for, or that they want to talk about because of the way the system is. So in that regard, like, I do hope they look to really crack down on this. And if this upsets people on the right, well, it's just, for my opinion, is like, well, what's your problem? Like, he's in politics now. He's an MP. He can do stuff now. So, like, if I really want to know what people's cases are for the likes of Nigel Farage and Lee Anderson to be paid by GB News to continue to do what they do, when they should be representing and working in their constituents, trying to help make them improve their lives better, because that's their jobs, that's their roles as politicians now, because they are representatives of Parliament. Now, some people have also argued about this, not just this committee hearing, but most committees, pretty much nearly all the committees. There are no Reform MPs on them, as far as I'm aware, from what I've heard. Now, that could entirely be wrong, and feel free to rectify that in the comments. But if that is true, obviously, is that a case of Labour just not giving Reform enough attention, or is this a case of our Reform MPs actually showing that they care about some of these hearings, and they actually want to get their voices heard on them? I think that's a fair case to make as well. But do I think that this needs to stop? That they have to make a choice, that if they want to be, do they want to be a media pundit, an influencer on news and broadcasting, or do they want to be a politician? They shouldn't be both. And I think that's the question. And do we think that's perfectly okay for someone to be a politician and a media influencer at the same time? In my opinion, no. But maybe some of you will disagree with me in the comments. So MPs could face a crackdown on hosting TV shows under new rules to restore trust in Parliament. The newly formed Modernisation Committee today published a memorandum agreeing to look at tightening rules on second jobs. The committee was promised in Labour's manifesto and is tasked with reforming the House of Commons procedures and driving up standards. MPs in the group, which met for the first time last Wednesday, said an early priority would be to look at outside paid engagement such as media appearances. The committee will examine whether paid outside engagements such as MPs' media appearances, journalism and speeches provided a benefit to the public or present a conflict of interest, it said. It will consult with the Standards Commissioner, who advised on the practicality of changes regarding outside interests, and it follows the controversy of some MPs earning hundreds of thousands of pounds for a contracted broadcast job. Channels including GB News and LBC have shown hosts by serving MPs. Yes, there's also, I remember, Suella Brownman has had quite a few appearances as hosting as LBC presenter, which I think is quite... and I have strong feelings about, her because of the damage that she has done as Home Secretary, and I think it personally is very vile to have someone of her being able to preach her views on a media platform, even if I fundamentally disagree, and also being an MP as well. Reform leader Nigel Farage presents a show on GB News, as does Reform's MP Lee Anderson. The Foreign Secretary David Lammy previously hosted an LBC radio show while in opposition, but quit ahead of the general election. Yeah, he doesn't do it anymore because he's a Foreign Secretary, but obviously he used to do that as well. Committees are normally chaired by backbench MPs, but this one is unusual, as it will be chaired by Lucy Powell, the leader of the House of Commons. Interesting that she's taking up this one. She said it is a great privilege to serve constituents and members of Parliament, but this privilege requires us to embody the very highest standards. As we turn the page in this Parliament following the events of the Modernisation Committee finds ways to do things better. She said the committee will set out to drive up standards, improve the culture and working practices, and reform procedures to make the House of Commons more open and accessible to people from all walks of life. The committee is seeking views from MPs, their staff, House staff, and wider stakeholders to find a path forward, she added. There is much to do, and we're looking forward to getting started. MPs are already banned from paid lobbying. There have been long calls for further limits on second jobs, with critics saying politicians should be focused on their constituents. There is no limit to what MPs can earn outside Parliament, but they must declare in the Register of Interest payments of more than £100. Last year, research by our Westminster Accounts project revealed that MPs earned an average of £233 per House of Rolls outside of Parliament, 17 times higher than the national average, and over 22 times more than the hourly minimum wage. Media appearances have particularly come under scrutiny due to concerns over impartiality and how much MPs can earn from hosting shows and writing columns. The August Register of Members' Financial Interests listed Mr Farage as receiving £97,928 per month from GB News. He said this was for several months' worth of work, but he does not get a fixed sum from the channel. He is also declared on the MP's register £4,000 per month from the Daily Telegraph. I have like the Daily Telegraph, obviously. Like Boris Johnson is different from because he's no longer an MP. He's not a member of the House of Lords, so it's a bit different now. That if he wants to continue to spread his influence and whatnot, that's all right. I don't know if my position should be different from broadcast media and then from newspaper outlets. I guess maybe it should, because I don't really want MPs, like, every now and then a politician writing a piece in a newspaper I don't think hurts, but if they're doing it all the time, maybe if it's the same MP, same politician doing it all the time, especially one that's an MP, maybe it shouldn't be something that should be allowed. Maybe it should be restricted. And 16,597 payments for recording private video messages on the Cameo app. Other noticeable entries on the register include Mr Anderson declaring £100,000 a year for also working on GB News. Mr Lammy was paid £49,245 by radio station LBC from August 2023 to May 2024 before quitting the election. Yeah, that's a lot of money, obviously, that MPs are getting paid for these second jobs, and all they really do is basically speak their minds. That's pretty much what it is, guys. They're just literally speaking their minds about what they're doing, saying what I'm doing here, to be fair, to a certain extent. But unlike me, these are politicians who have a great deal of influence and can fundamentally change the fabrics of our policies within the UK, and they have a great deal of influence in doing so too. And I do feel that it does have a conflict of interest. But the question is how much of it is just conflict of interest and how much of it is just simply public interest, and where is that balance? I think is where it's going to be. I'm very curious. I don't know. I'm going to have to. I really want to have a look and actually know exactly the list of MPs that are on this particular committee. My understanding, I believe it's 11 Labour MPs and 9 other MPs on it. So I would hope that there is at least one Green MP on the committee hearing, at least, and maybe at least 1 or 2 from Scotland, Lib Dems and Conservatives. I hope it's a mixed bag on that hearing, but it will be definitely be one very interested to listen to, especially in committee hearings. So I generally hope Daily Blase, one of our friends on YouTube, will definitely be keeping an eye on this one in particular, because this one definitely holds quite significance, and especially if Labour are very serious about bringing better standards to the House of Parliament, this is one that's definitely I have a very keen interest on. But what do you guys honestly think about the new parliamentary committee that's going to be set up to potentially crack down on second jobs and whatnot? How do you guys feel about that? Do you feel that there is going to be significant change? Do you think it'll be better? Maybe some of you will think it will be worse. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, what you guys think of this story. If you found this video interesting, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video. And subscribe, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.